8:07 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Brian Wilson, Larry O'Connor on the Newsmaker hotline right now. The president of the National Rifle Association, David Keene. Mr. Keene, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
There were a couple of things that happened yesterday in our particular area. First, up on Capitol Hill, there was this hearing about an assault weapons ban, a bill proposed by Dianne Feinstein. Here's how she started out the hearing.
And that is legal today.
That's Dianne Feinstein yesterday.
In Maryland, of course, it isn't legal.
We're going to get to that. And in Maryland, of course, the Senate is debating the governor's gun proposal. So two things we need to talk to you about. First of all, you're quoted as saying that there's going to be a very rough and very ugly battle over gun control. Where is that battle at this moment?
Well, at this moment, what we have are two things going on sort of simultaneously. On the one hand, you've got chief executives, particularly in the states and some in the United States Senate, trying to push legislation through that would, in their view, control guns, and trying to get it through without much real deliberation because they think they can pass it on the wave of emotion. On the other hand, what you've got is legislators around the country beginning to realize that some of these measures are not as wise as they might have thought they were on the one hand, and secondly realizing that the populations of their state and the country may not be as solidly behind additional restrictions on Second Amendment rights as some thought they were. So from our point of view, it's a mixed kind of atmosphere because you've got things like what happened in New York, where Governor Cuomo rammed through legislation that no one was able to even read, and found out that they've managed to make felons out of most police officers in the state on the one hand, and messed up a number of other things. That's a bad way to make law.
Right.
And you've got the same thing to a degree going on in Maryland, although that may be breaking down a little bit based on yesterday because it was assumed that Governor O'Malley was just going to push through his legislation, but in fact, for good or ill, it's been opened up to amendment even in the Senate, and then there'll be hearings in the House on Friday in Annapolis. So we don't know where those things are going, but our view has been and continues to be that if you get the deliberative process to work, if you examine these pieces of legislation, and examine them in light of two things. One, do they move you toward accomplishing what we as a society want to accomplish, which is to reduce gun crime on the one hand and the possibility of more mass shootings on the other? And secondly, whether or not they're consistent and pay dividends in terms of their relationship to putting burdens on people exercising their legitimate Second Amendment rights to self-defense and using firearms in the shooting sports, that you're going to get relatively sensible legislation. Our fear is that unless you get that deliberation, anything can happen as particularly state chief executives try to play to the very left wing of the base of their party. It's interesting to me that the states in which this is occurring, like Maryland, are headed by governors who see themselves, rightly or wrongly, as potential presidential candidates, and they're really trying, I think, to use this issue to tell the left wing of their party that, gee, we're your kind of candidate.
Yeah. David Keene is our guest. He's the president of the National Rifle Association. And Mr. Keene, can you do me a favor? Because sure. I watch these shows, I watch these interviews, these television debates. I mean, Piers Morgan drives me nuts. I can't imagine how you sit through any of those segments that he's been doing. And they always come back with the same argument. And God bless it, I have not seen a good conservative pundit that goes on and is able to really properly articulate the best response to this. You are the man, David Keene. Pressure is on, and I promise I will use this whenever it comes up. Whenever they say, well, if you believe the Second Amendment protects every individual's right to bear arms and there's no limitations to it, then what's your argument? Why do you think that people should have a tank or a bazooka or a machine gun? What is the proper and consistent Second Amendment response? Actually,
that very question was dealt with in the Heller decision in the United States Supreme Court. The original intent of the Second Amendment was not so that citizens could have cannons, but so that they could have long arms and the firearms that were legal at that time. And what the court has said today is that those firearms that are, as they put it, commonly owned and widely used for legal purposes by the citizenry cannot be banned. And obviously, the rocket launchers, tanks.
So that's the critical language right there. Commonly owned and widely used, and certainly what they are calling assault weapons are commonly owned and widely used.
That's right. In fact, I think that absent a change in the Supreme Court, that if a so-called assault weapons ban gets to the courts under the with the precedent of the Heller and McDonald decisions, that it's very difficult to uphold such a ban, because the AR-15, the most widely owned semi-automatic rifle that they don't like, is in the hands of some 4.5 million Americans. It's being used for hunting, for target shooting, for competition. It's the most widely used training firearm for long-arm competition, and if you go to these competitions, you see long lines of people using them. And it is commonly owned, it is widely used for legitimate purposes, and one wonders what it is about that language in the Supreme Court decision that these policymakers don't understand.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, honestly, from day one, I've looked at this thing and I said, this is going to be, as Shakespeare said, a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing, because there's going to be a lot of talk. But I don't see the political will to make significant changes. Do you still feel that that's the lay of the landscape?
Well, yes and no. I think that it's always dangerous to underestimate the power and influence of a governor or president who really wants to ram something through the legislature or the Congress if the chief executive is willing to spend taxpayers' money and do all of the things that a chief executive can do to get his way. So we think that the threat is very real. But as I said earlier, we suspect that if it gets down to it and they really analyze these things, that much of it is going to be defeated, and we're going to be dealing with relatively few serious proposals, some of which are flawed and some of which are not.
I think it's also dangerous for opponents to underestimate the NRA.
Yes.
Just saying.
Well, it's not us. It's the people we represent.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, David Keene, I know that you guys have a great setup planned for CPAC over on Radio Row. We're just going to be about 2 doors down from you, so we hope you can come by and visit us when we're there.
You can bet I'll be there.
Great. See you then. David Keene, president of the National Rifle Association.